All right, WAPO, alongside with Los Angeles Times, has decided not to endorse a candidate. And by that, I mean they have decided not to endorse Kamala Harris. This is now the second major newspaper that got the boss call. Another billionaire made the boss call and was like, nope, you're not doing it. An endorsement of Harris had been drafted by Post editorial page staffers, but had yet to be published, according to the two sources briefed on the sequence of events who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. The decision not to publish was made by the Post owner, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, according to the same sources. And now the WAPO editor has resigned. Scoop, Washington Post editor at large Robert Kagan confirms to me that he resigned from the Post following today's decision not to endorse in the presidential race. I want to say something here, okay? This is hollow. First of all, Jeff Bezos, even though he's my boss technically, okay? No disrespect, Jeff Bezos, but like, come on. That's number one. Number two, like, what are we doing? What are we doing in this country where billionaires could just be like a major distributed newspaper and its editorial team have no control over their own shit? How do you not look at this and go, what the is happening? You got Elon Musk that owns Twitter and is using Twitter to make it Stormfront, okay? You got Jeff Bezos being like, nah, Washington Post, you can't endorse Kamala Harris. Like Kamala Harris, okay? Not a fan. You guys know this. But how the like how? How is this a thing? How is nobody going, this seems kind of weird to me that like the editorial team cannot make this decision. A billionaire can make the boss call like this. This is straight up Gilded Age. I know for a fact that the news teams and the editorial team is almost entirely at odds with the coverage on Israel. Like almost always. Every single news outlet right now has the exact same problem. Your journalists are like, bro, I'm seeing something and I want to write about it. This is insane. The editorial team is like, nah, it's fine. Don't write it. Or they're looking at it and they're going, let's massage this a little bit. Here's the last time Jeff Bezos tweeted. Our former president showed tremendous grace and courage under literal fire tonight. So thankful for his safety and so sad for the victims and their families. Jeff Bezos is the one guy that got duped by the Trump. The polls didn't even move except for one guy, Jeff Bezos. Also, this is the least shocking thing of all time. Jeff Bezos is a Silicon Valley tech bro. These guys are all charlatans. They've all been like Ayn Randian libertarian dipshit from the jump. And now they're on board with Donald Trump. Oligarchy in the USA, starting in the USA. No, starting is here. It's been here, man. When was it not here? What do you mean starting? This is what I've been telling you for a long time. The issue is now it's getting to a level where it's like making people uncomfortable because people are recognizing it. Having said that, however, things are probably not going to change. And on top of that, a lot of people are going to start not necessarily recognizing it, but normalizing it. WAPO Guild response, they said they had the article drafted. We are deeply concerned that the Washington Post, an American news institution in the nation's capital, would make the decision to no longer endorse presidential candidates, especially a mere 11 days ahead of an immensely consequential election. The role of an editorial board is just to do this, or is to do just this, to share opinions on the news, impacting our society, culture, and endorse candidates to help guide readers. The message from our chief executive, Will Lewis, not from the editorial board itself, makes us concerned that management interfered with the work of our members in editorial. According to our own reporters and guild members, an endorsement for Harris was already drafted, and the decision to not publish was made by the Post owner, Jeff Bezos. We are already seeing cancellations from once loyal readers. This decision undercuts the work of our members at a time when we should be building our readers' trust, not losing it. Yeah, Jeff Bezos actually made the boss call because he was like, I don't think you can endorse genocide. That's what he did. Jeff Bezos is a PSL voter. He's in the tank. He's in the tank for PSL. Jeff Bezos would be like, I like Jill Stein, actually, because of her consistent support for the humanity of Palestinians.
24 hours later.
Wait, what? The daughter of the owner of LA Times said that the decision not to endorse Harris stemmed from her stance on the Gaza war. Oh my God, I'm eating crow today. Oh my God, I'm eating crow today. That's crazy. Oh my God, I jokingly said LA Times and WAPO are based. They're actually refusing to endorse Kamala Harris over her Gaza policy. Wait, as in she's not pro-Palestine or not pro-Israel enough? Wait, A California native and resident of Los Angeles, Miss Harris was not a unifying and inspirational generational figure, but in the board members' view, but also an important bulwark between Donald J. Trump and Democratic institutions. Wait, they were unaware, however, that a different tone and more powerful group had been meeting the family, Dr. Patrick Son Xiang, the newspaper's owner, with far different plans for the newspaper's voice. This week, the biotech billionaire who had bought the paper in 2018 for $500 million acted on those plans with scant internal or public explanation, abruptly vetoing the plan endorsement, informing the board through an intermediary that the LA Times would make no recommendation in the presidential race. For days, the readers in overwhelmingly liberal Southern California speculated angrily about the decision that was widely regarded as favored to Mr. Trump and a vote of no confidence to Ms. Harris. Thousands of readers canceled subscriptions. But in a stunning statement on Saturday, his daughter, Nika Soon Xiang, 31, a progressive political activist who has frequently been accused of trying to meddle in the paper's news coverage, said the decision was motivated by Ms. Harris's continued support for Israel and its war in Gaza. Our family made the joint decision. Oh my God. I never in a billion years would have thought, are my eyes deceiving me? What? We don't honestly believe that, right? Like, come on, dude, don't be naive. This was the first and only time I've been involved in the process. Miss Soon Xiang, who has no form of role at the paper, said in a statement to the New York Times, as a citizen of a country openly financing genocide and as a family that experienced South African apartheid, the endorsement was an opportunity to repudiate justifications of the widespread targeting of journalists and ongoing war on children. Over the past 6 years, writers and editors have increasingly chafed at the interference. Dr. Soon Xiang, 72, and his family in the newsroom, where owners are generally regarded less proprietors with the right to impose their personal views as guardians of public trust. In January, Kevin Morita stepped down as executive editor after clashing with Dr. Soon Xiang over an unpublished article about an acquaintance of the newspaper owner, as well as other conflicts in the newsroom. Oh my God, every other media outlet is going to come after these guys now. Even this New York Times coverage is like, the New York Times coverage is, like, originally, I thought that, they were doing the billionaires are interfering with the election. And that's what I thought, too. This is very clearly a billionaire family endorsing Trump without actually endorsing him and disguising it in woke. Stop being naive. I don't know. According to his Wikipedia page, her dad tried to get a position in Trump's White House. So it could be. That could be the case. My initial assumption was this. These guys are billionaires, and billionaires have a lot of contracts that they can get from whoever comes in the next administration, and they see that, like, it's a close race. And I do remember this, which is why I thought it was like, would have never thought in a million years that they would never actually take a stance like this. Taking that stance publicly isn't what you would do if you were that reason. There's plenty of shit they can lie about. I know there's a lot of controversy and confusion over LAT's decision not to endorse a presidential candidate. I trust the editorial board's judgment. For me, genocide is the line in the sand. The temptation is to speak in muffled tones. Wait, this is her? I would love to have her on the broadcast. That's crazy. For my family, apartheid is not a vague concept. My father was an emergency surgeon at Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto. He treated students shot by the police during the Soweto uprisings, where 176 died protesting the brutal system of racial segregation. Okay, this is confusing. Because there is a lot of stuff that the LA Times did early on that I did not like. I am quite interested in finding out more. Here's what we do know. Oh my God, she's younger than me. That's crazy. That's frustrating. That's a totally irrelevant, but still very frustrating fact to come to terms with. God damn it. I am 2 years older than her. How is that possible? Let's get back to the story. Let's get back to the matter at hand. Nika is super based. Oh my God. Cinemarxism. A Cinemarxism endorsement for a billionaire's daughter that was the public safety commissioner that held a position in local office in Los Angeles. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. I never in a million years would have ever heard Cinemarxism say anything remotely positive about anyone that has ever held local office ever. This person must be like a Maoist or something. I mean, this gives me hope. Whenever I hear people that are in that come from, relatively wealthy families or people who are pretty wealthy themselves have these sorts of remarkable opinions that are so unheard of in places of power, it actually gives me a little bit of hope seeing my favorite documentarian / anarchist anti-cop Los Angelino endorse this person is shocking. Now I trust everything that she has said. What the This is funny because the coverage of the LA Times and every single newspaper in the US is painted dissent against the war as criminal. That is true. That is like not wrong. That is literally not wrong. That's why it's shocking. Even if her dad actually made this decision in a pro-Trump fashion, it is very cool that she's now cooking him a little bit and simultaneously associating this like massive media coverage worthy decision with a pro-Palestinian anti-genocide moral position. This will absolutely change the dynamic a little bit. I would love to talk to this person. I would love to get in contact with this person. I'd love to talk to them. They seem dope. Speaking this week on the cable news outlet Spectrum, which regularly carries Los Angeles Times content, Dr. Soon Shong was asked about a possible political motivation. I want us desperately to air all the voices on the opinion side on the op-ed side, he said. He said he did not know whether readers viewed him or his family as ultra-progressive or not, but I'm an independent. In an interview with one of his own reporters on Friday, Dr. Soon Shong said that his stand was not based on any single issue, nor did he intend by withholding an endorsement to favor either Ms. Harris or Mr. Trump. We should be an organization that stands up and says the facts, presenting views across the political spectrum, he said. I think that the country needs that desperately. Several senior editors of the Times said they were not briefed on the reasons for Dr. Soon Shong's decision, but they noted that he had often been critical of the Biden administration, had boasted of having dinner with Mr. Trump after he won the presidency in 2016, and often has approvals pending with the Federal Food and Drug Administration. They speculated that he may have been hedging his bets over a range of issues. Reporters and editors have chafed at phone calls, emails and social media postings offering questions and suggestions about the news coverage from both Dr. Soon Shong and his daughter. In the past, she has been critical of the publication's coverage of crime, policing, and Israel's war in Gaza, among other things. Several reporters interviewed described Ms. Soon Shong contacting them directly with critiques of their coverage or publicly posting her negative opinions about the stories on social media. A former editor recalled reporters worrying about whether her comments were actually coming from her father. You never know how much Nika is speaking for herself and how much she is speaking for her whole family, the editor said. This is incredible. This is the exact opposite of how things normally work. And it's really interesting that given that this is the exact opposite of how things really work, I think you will see a lot more backlash on this, perhaps even more backlash on this than Jeff Bezos, who I don't think is motivated by, the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden administration's decisions on Israel. Unless Jeff Bezos, given his hatred for MBS and MBS's allegiances with Israel, also weirdly is anti-Israel for some reason, in which case I'm losing my mind. At that point, it's Jover. Okay, you're in too deep now. I'm just saying crazier things have happened. Yeah, she actually defunded the police in West Hollywood. West Hollywood cut a few sheriff's deputies. It fueled a national firestorm on crime. Defunding. Several sources told the New York Times at the time that Dr. Soon Shong had stepped in to make inquiries about the newspapers reporting on the doctor, who was embroiled in dueling lawsuits with a woman who claimed to have been bitten by his dog. Yeah, this is typical rich guy shit. And unacceptable. I think it's unacceptable for wealthy people, for billionaires to purchase newspapers and then motivate them to carry out their agenda. This is one of the major biases. This is one of the major biases that I talk about in mainstream press, because although in the United States of America, they're not technically owned by the state in the same way that Al Jazeera is owned by the Qatar state or BBC is owned by the British state, and carries out the state's interests openly because they are a state newspaper. There are still very clear ambitions, very clear motivations amongst these privately owned newspapers that align with the interests of capital and align with the American State Department. This is something that I explain all the time in my media criticisms, right? It usually occurs in ways where you kind of know what you can say, what you can't say. You get elevated, manufacturing consent style. You get elevated to higher and higher offices within the structure of the media. If you play ball on certain things, right? That's usually how it's kept up. This is unique because it goes against the grain. Direct interference on a story does not necessarily go against the grain. Direct interference on a story is typical billionaire shit. But if there's any kind of real issues with the Harris administration's policies, foreign policy specifically, in the Biden-Harris administration's actions with Israel, if that is the real issue here, if they are at odds with the Kamala Harris campaign for this particular reason, and that's the reason why they're withholding their endorsement, that is different. That is different than like Jeff Bezos' motivations, most likely. And that's actually unique. That's actually shocking. That is not something that I suspected would ever happen. Soon Shang made several noteworthy editorial proposals encouraging the paper to vastly increase its coverage of non-white communities in the Los Angeles area, and suggested the paper avoid using the word looting when covering civil unrest over police brutality and racial injustice. The Times subsequently changed its style guidelines to specify when the paper felt it was appropriate to use the word. This is from a Daily Beast article in 2021. That's really interesting. LA Times billionaire daughter is tinkering with the paper and staffers welcome it. There's a couple different interests at play here. Broadly, I won't say that this is across the board the same, and I certainly do not know what the internals look like at LA Times, but broadly speaking, editorial teams, as far as my experience goes from the journalists I talk to, editorial teams are sometimes a little bit at odds ideologically with the journalists that are doing the reporting. They have a lot of power. They can change the dynamic of a story. They can literally take original reporting and actually make the article come across as the exact opposite. And as far as I've seen, a lot of the lower level staffers and actual journalists are oftentimes, including but not limited to the New York Times even, at odds with what the editors are trying to get out of certain stories in the way that they are trying to massage certain stories. Every now and then something actually slips out, or every now and then there's a delicate balance where you are trying to retain credibility, you're trying to be a credible source of news, so you turn around and you give in, and the New York Times certainly does a litany of those sorts of stories where everyone's shocked, where they're like, damn, they just interviewed 56 healthcare professionals in Gaza and openly admitted that like they've never seen so many babies with bullets lodged into their skulls. That's crazy. So that happens every now and then for one reason or another. And I think that if this is true, if what I'm seeing is correct, it seems like at least the daughter, Sun Xiang's daughter, definitely has a political perspective that is aligned with ours here in this community. And for one reason or another, she has chosen to speak out at a time when there's a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention on Los Angeles Times refusing to endorse Kamala Harris, and is saying that the real reason is because of the current administration's policies on Gaza. Ms. Sun Xiang had telegraphed the concerns over Ms. Harris's Israel policy in a post on social media earlier this week about the publication's decision not to endorse. This is not a vote for Donald Trump. This is a refusal to endorse a candidate that is overseeing a war on children. I'm proud of the LA Times decision, she posted on X. That's pretty cool, man. I'm sorry. This is a cool thing that she said. I was wrong. I'm eating crow. At the HasanAbi broadcast, if this is correct, if this is actually the truth, then, crows have been eaten. I'll take it, Egg on my face, straight up. There's a lot of controversy and confusion over LA Times' decision not to endorse a presidential candidate. I trust the editorial board's judgment. For me, genocide is the line in the stand. The temptation is to speak in muffled tones about the issue the international courts have called a plausible genocide. But this moment requires opposition to crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and apartheid, as my parents did in South Africa. For my family, apartheid is not a vague concept. My father was an emergency surgeon at Barak Vanath Hospital in Soweto. He treated students shot by the police during the Soweto uprisings, where 176 died protesting the brutal system of racial segregation. Apartheid was not just a political project, it was a profitable one, underpinned by lobbyists in Washington, U.S. defense contracts, and an international market for weapons, diamonds, and gold. Many U.S. news organizations and politicians were complicit. The official case for apartheid, South Africa's foreign minister outlines the history and philosophy behind his country's policy of separate development for whites and non-whites. Apartheid, illegal settlements, and the genocide in Palestine are profitable too, underpinned by U.S. arms dealers witnessing record profits. This is the coolest development that I have encountered in a story such as this one, and perhaps one of the coolest instances where I have been wronged. Like I've been wrong. I still don't know if this is the full tilt decision. For the sake of the living and in the name of the dead, for the sake of our collective humanity, we must raise the moral floor, she said. In the statement, in his own social media post this week, Dr. Sun Xiang had pushed back on Ms. Garza's version of the events surrounding the endorsement decision. He wrote on X that he had directed the editorial board to compare the policies of each candidate and let readers decide whom to choose. Oh, okay. So Pop Pop is saying that's not the case. It seems like Pop Pop and the daughter are at odds here. Some were urging a more public explanation of the politics behind the endorsement decision, if there was any. If there's an explanation, he should say so, said Ms. Klein, the former editorial board member. When you have a gap in information like this, the tendency among readers is to fill it in. Is this his daughter expressing opposition on Gaza? Is he hoping Trump will lower his taxes? Does he have pharmaceuticals pending before the FDA? And he's worried about approval from a Trump administration. He should tell people. Dan Morian, a former LA Times staff writer, who went on to become the editorial page editor in the Sacramento Bee, said that the paper can justify not endorsing a presidential campaign because people usually have enough information. Yeah, that's the other part of this, by the way. Clearly, in terms of like endorsements, even the gray lady, the paper of record, the New York Times, and their endorsements are relatively unconsequential, and that there's nothing that rings truer than the New York Times' double endorsement of, was it Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren? So it's funny. This is like inside baseball, and it's obviously in terms of impact. It ironically does more in terms of create like motion in either direction when there is a story surrounding not endorsing a candidate rather than endorsing a candidate, if that makes sense. Do you see what I'm saying? So here's my speculation. Wee woo, speculation alert. My speculation is that Pop Pop might have had a different opinion as to why he didn't want an endorsement that perhaps revolved around a similar decision-making structure to Jeffrey Bezos's and had nothing to do with Israel-Palestine at all, whereas perhaps the daughter actually is taking advantage of this opportunity to make it seem like it's over Gaza in an effort to get more coverage on the matter. It's not to save face at all, because this, unironically, in my opinion, will draw significantly more controversy than if the dad straight up was like, endorse Trump instead. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? This is not a vote for Donald Trump. This is a refusal to endorse a candidate that's overseeing a war on children. I'm proud of the LA Times decision, just as I am certain there is no such thing as children of darkness. There is no such thing as human shields. Yeah. Apartheid, illegal settlements, a genocide in Palestine are profitable too, underpinned by U.S. dealers witnessing record profits. Northrop Grumman stock is up 28%. General Dynamics is up 37%. Lockheed Martin up 55%. Dick Cheney is pleased. The goal for these profiteers is to distract and divide, to keep the weapons flowing. This is one reason even the most basic U.S. laws banning weapons sales to militaries that restrict humanitarian aid are being ignored. As Mandela said, the temptation is to speak in muffled tones about the rights of people of Palestine. Having achieved our own freedom, we can fall into the trap of washing our hands of difficulties that others face. Yet we would be less than human if we did so. That's sick. So this is what her statement was. This is what his statement was. So many comments about the LA Times editorial board not providing a presidential endorsement this year. Let me clarify how this decision came about. The editorial board was provided the opportunity to draft a factual analysis of all the positive and negative policies by each candidate during their tenures of the White House and how these policies affected the nation. In addition, the board was asked to provide their understanding of the policies and plans enunciated by the candidates during this campaign and its potential effect on the nation in the next 4 years. In this way, with this clear and nonpartisan information side by side, our readers could decide who would be worthy of being president for the next 4 years. Instead of adopting this path as suggested, the editorial board chose to remain silent. And I accepted their decision. Please vote. Dear Dr. Pat, could you do something about the constant stream of anti-Semitism that is platformed by the once prestigious LA Times? Or is that in line with your views? After all, your own daughter has called Israel an apartheid state that is now committing genocide against the Palestinians. Uber rich, uber woke, uber awful. Nika responds to Visegrad. We have the same enemies. That's cool. The source of this image should be cited. It provides context and offers a unique analysis. From the river to the sea. Sure. Sounds good, baby. Want another beer? Did you really think that kind of cute guy really cared about justice for East Timor? The truly talented PJ O'Rourke. Wait, what? She is by standard. What the Oh, that's gross as hell, dude. Oh, that's so gross. Here's a picture of Nika Soon Xiong, the absurdly wealthy daughter of the owner of the LA Times, a paper which she helped ruin and bankrupt every day with her progressive reporting demands and newsroom interference. This is very cool. She's very cool. Founder of Fund for Guaranteed Income, PhD candidate at University of Oxford. She's on the board for the Committee to Protect Journalists and also One Fair Wage, National Council on Equal Education. She is the GOAT. This person is my new favorite person that I have just found out about. Holy shit. And she was literally my public safety commissioner. I would love to interview her. This is not the type of person that you usually experience, but it's very cool. She went to Stanford University, got a master's in African studies, bachelor's in international relations, and a doctoral candidate. And she's a doctoral candidate at the University of Oxford. Yeah, I think it's sick. I think it's very cool. Now, Patrick Soon-Shiong is saying the decision not to endorse in the 2024 race was not tied to the war in Gaza, and his daughter's views were her own opinion. Okay, very quick update, very quick turnaround. This is of 10 minutes ago. This is literally coming in hot. Nika Soon-Shiong, daughter of LA Times owner Patrick Soon-Shiong, says non-endorsement decision was over Kamala Harris' support for Israel in its war in Gaza. Now, Patrick immediately came out and was like, that's not the case. So I guess I was right. So Pop made a decision, possibly a financial one. And then her super cool daughter decided to be like, yeah, actually, maybe it's because of Gaza. I love her. She's incredible. Here's more reporting with sidestepping on the questions from the Papa. Kate is a great reporter. I asked Dr. Soon-Shiong 3 different ways whether Vice President Harris' stance on Israel and the funding of the war in Gaza was a factor, and he sidestepped those questions. He said, there are pros and there are cons, and everybody has a pro and a con. What does that? Okay, so maybe the dad is cool on that too a little bit, but maybe he's just worried that he doesn't want to say it's because of Gaza. That's an insane response, by the way.